Welcome in to another episode of Home Field Advantage. Hope you're having a great week wherever you may be across our great country or our great land. Thanks for riding along with us here. August 12th, 2025, the date of the recording. Season 7 fully underway, of course. We're heading into the NFL season. We're right in the preseason. We're getting close to the start of the year. 17 game schedule, the whole 9 yards. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it a lot. We'll talk about it at length over the next few months. So we have that we're going to dive into today. Of course, my name is Will Highland. I appreciate you tuning in. We have new album artwork. We have a new theme song. We've got some different things. As I said, we're heading into the NFL season. We're going to be content heavy and we're going to give it our best go. It's hot as blaze outside here. So if you hear a fan, I'm trying to cut down on the background noise, but super hard to stay cool. For those of you watching on YouTube, welcome. Thank you. I appreciate you tuning in on our stream there. And for those of you listening on Spotify, we appreciate that. Spotify, of course, the engine of this podcast. And if you're listening on Apple, Google, Stitcher, anywhere else, we appreciate your tuning in there as well. Okay, I think the best place to start is with everything that I haven't talked about in the last 10 days, which, to be honest, is nothing but the beginning of the NFL preseason. I mean, we talked MLB trade deadline, but this pod is going to focus heavily on the NFL. NHL, NBA, kind of quiet. College football, they had some media days, still pretty quiet. No Olympics like there was last year at this time. So we're focusing on NFL. And I've liked to I like to do this in years past, and I'm going to do it again this year. I want to focus mostly on the NFC today, and we'll be back, in a week to talk about the AFC and about the Pats, of course, with me being a Pats fan and everything. But I think in the NFC, it comes down to two fundamental questions. Number one, what is the NFC West going to look like? And number two, what is the NFC South going to look like? Because I think everyone has a good idea that the East is going to revolve around the defending champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Washington Commanders are expected to be good again. The Dallas Cowboys, with the roster that they field, should be good, but again, they always tend to have a soap opera situation every year, and this year it's Micah Parsons. We're not going to talk too much about the New York Giants. I don't think they're ready. Um, I think they're about 4 years too late on their pursuit of Russell Wilson. And then you have the NFC North, which historically has been a one-team division. You had years where it was the Packers dominating, and you had years where, it would prop up and you'd have a Vikings team or a Bears team that was really good. But I think the North people believe is going to be competitive, and the East people believe is going to be competitive. I think the main question when you look at the NFC is in the West, are the Rams going to be a team that meets expectations? Is this Matthew Stafford injury something to worry about? What's Sean McVay like, at this stage in his career? What's he coaching for? What's that defense look like? There, there, there's holes in that Rams roster, but at the same time, they're really talented and should compete for a Super Bowl if they're healthy. As weird as that sounds. And then the Cardinals, like, what are the Cardinals? Is Kyler Murray like the guy we saw in 2021? Or is Kyler Murray more of that? guy that we've seen since he's come back from the injury? It's a valid question. And then similarly in the South, are any of those teams going to be any good? I think the Buccaneers are going to be pretty good. I picked them to go Super Bowl at the beginning of the playoffs last year. But everybody there is kind of a year older. All their stars, Godwin, Evans, Baker, etc., Vita Vea. They drafted well, um, but they're kind of one of those teams where Tampa gets into the playoffs and then what? Right? Is Atlanta going to be any good? Michael Penix, etc., and that young team, new coach. I don't know. Um, so that's one of my questions is what does the NFC look like if if the if the Falcons are good? Like if Kirk Cousins shows and is healthy and Michael Penix is around and that drama gets worked out, like is Kirk Cousins capable of making the Falcons a 9-win team? Is Bryce Young and that whole operation in Carolina gonna get off the ground ever? What does the defense of the San Francisco 49ers do? Are they we always talk about their offense. They still have Nick Bosa, right? One of the best defensive players in the league. So like I think the West and the South are half make up half the conference. But I think they make up 75% of the questions left in the NFC. And I wonder, is it fair to pick a quarterback in each division and say those four guys are going to be the ones that mold the rest of the conference? Like, is that too quarterback centric? Because I think when discussing the the NFL, it's really easy to focus a lot on the quarterbacks and the quarterbacks only. But I look around the rest of the league even, and I say it really is a bellwether. It really is. I mean, if you don't have that figured out, you're not winning a damn thing. And in the East, is it Jane Daniels? If Daniels is good again and takes another step, then Washington's a Super Bowl contender. If in the South, whoever plays quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons is somewhat serviceable, I could see that team making a push for the playoffs. They were pretty close last year. And the the North, Jared Goff without Ben Johnson, right? Jared Goff has been a coordinator merchant for much of his career. But even more so, what's JJ McCarthy, I think, or what is Caleb Williams? That whole division outside of maybe Jordan Love has quarterback question marks. And lastly, in the West, Sam Darnold, is he going to replicate last year for Seattle? Is Brock Purdy going to continue to be a reliable guy, or it's like year 4 when we finally sort of see like a leveling out, much like we did with the guy he took his job from, which was Jimmy Garoppolo. Once Jimmy Garoppolo got to year 4 of being a starter, you know, I'd say 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, he was always like in the mix in the Niner. He was like the guy, and then we saw him not be the guy. And then lastly, Matt Stafford, right? So I look around and every division has quarterback question marks. Not in terms of who's going to start, but in terms of what impact are they going to have when they play. And then likewise, as I mentioned at the beginning, the East and the And the North, I feel okay about. Going to be competitive divisions. I think you're probably only looking at two out of those eight teams with a losing record. I think maybe the Giants have a losing record and maybe the Bears have a losing record. I don't think anyone else does. I think the Cowboys are going to be better than they were last year. And it begs the ultimate question, which is who made the postseason last year in the NFC who's not going to make it this year? Right? I'm going to look it up just to make sure I have the teams right. But last year we had, just open this image for me. Thank you. Last year this is what we had. We had the Lions, the Eagles, the Packers, the Buccaneers, the Commanders, the Rams, and the Vikings. Who's not making the playoffs out of that list? Are they all going to make it again? I think probably the Eagles are a lock. And unless something bizarre happens and they take a massive step back without their two coordinators from last year, I think the Lions are probably a lock to make the playoffs. After that, the Rams, as I pointed out, if Stafford is truly hurt and isn't the same guy, then that's a problem in LA. If JJ McCarthy looks like a puddle out there, which I don't know, I doubt it. He's a pretty talented guy. I think O'Connell is a good enough coach to make something happen, make them competitive. But I don't put them as a lock to make the playoffs, despite all that talent on that team, especially in the offensive side of the ball. Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, etc. The Buccaneers, maybe because they played a crappy division, they're probably a lock to make the playoffs. But I think they're probably the safest bet outside the Eagles and Lions. The Packers are probably going to be good again. And the Commanders are probably going to be good again. So it's like, who's not making it, if anybody? And if somebody drops out, who's coming in? Is it the San Francisco 49ers who should be better? Right? They didn't make the playoffs last year. Everyone's talking about them like a lock to win the West. They didn't make the playoffs. So if they make it, that means one of those teams I just mentioned and went through isn't. Likewise, if the Falcons or the Cowboys have a bounce back season and play to the talent on their roster, then probably you're looking at maybe a situation where Minnesota or Washington don't make the playoffs. Because there's only 7 spots to hand out, right? And it's not a lock for really anybody outside of Philly in Tampa and Detroit. But even Tampa, I look at, I'm like, well, if Mayfield gets hurt or if there's an injury or if something doesn't gel right, then that roster does have some holes in it. It's still a very good roster, but it does have some holes. Um, I don't think their front seven is as good as it was in 2022, 2021 during the Brady era. So I have some major questions about the NFC. I do. I think conventional wisdom the past few years has said, oh well, the NFC is really good. You think about the last couple of years you've had the Lions or the 49ers or the Eagles or the Cowboys or one of these teams with a really strong record. I'm talking 3, 4 years, even the Rams going back to their Super Bowl win. Or back to when Brady was on the Buccaneers or Breeze was on the Saints. I'm going back 5 years now, but you looked at these teams and you're like, well, that's a playoff team, that's a playoff team, that's a playoff team, that's a playoff team. Even going back to when Wilson was on the Seahawks, for example, that's a playoff team. And that's a team I haven't. His new team, the Giants, I haven't even talked about them. I don't think they're going to be very good, but like, would it shock me if they went 9-8 and threatened for a wild card? No, no. So like back in the day, the NFC was really predictable. But nowadays, like with with the quarterback carousels that go on and the coaching coordinator carousels that go on, it's really hard to pinpoint a particular team outside of a couple, like the Chiefs or the Bills in the AFC, for example, and say, well, that team is gonna go 13-4 and make the playoffs. It's hard. It's hard to do that. And it's hard to predict when there's seven teams that make the playoffs. Who's gonna crack that seven in place of somebody else? And it's one of the most fun things to talk about in sports. And Cam and Diesel and I are going to have a lot of fun talking about it in a few weeks when we get closer to the season. But the thing about the preseason is everyone's optimistic, right? It's kind of like when you go to college, or it's a similar time of year. You go to college, you've never been before, you're optimistic. Oh, I'm going to make new friends. I'm going to try new things. This is the beginning of something. That's how like virtually every NFL fan feels in the month of August. You can really jazz up your team, or you could really crap on your team, and we're very reactionary. I think NFL fans are probably the most reactionary in all of sports because we don't have that much to contextualize because there's 17 games a year plus the playoffs. And so you work through all of this drama every week in, every week out for one game. And so every little thing matters. Well, is the offensive line going to be prepared week one? Because if not, you could drop a winnable game. Think about the Bengals last year, right? They probably should have beaten the Patriots in week one. Might have been a playoff team. And I think in the NFL world, we're really reactionary. We look around and we're like, well, this thing is going great so far, so that means this is a problem that we don't have to worry about anymore. Or Jane Daniels was great last year. That means we can pencil him in for another 10-win season or more. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, outside of the Chiefs and the Patriots, my entire lifetime has been a new bunch of teams trying to vie for success in the AFC and none of them really succeeding. The last time the Chiefs and the Patriots, or the Patriots, I should say, were not in the AFC title game was 2010. 15 years ago was the last time. And in the NFC, it's kind of like similar but different. You have a team that tends to win the NFC East every year that's new. But yet, the NFC East, outside of the Eagles and the Giants, nobody's won a Super Bowl this century from that division. Yet that division has basically produced new playoff teams combinations every year. But, the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since, before the internet. And the Washington Commanders haven't since they were the Redskins. And, I don't even think I was alive. But yet every year, a new flashy team comes out of that division. Likewise, the 49ers are entering Buffalo Bills territory, where they had all these great teams for years and years and years. They haven't won a Super Bowl since Steve Young. So like it's a weird thing in the NFL. We're really reactionary, but then when you take a step back and you look, it's like, well, only 1 out of 32 wins, and everyone else you kind of forget unless you win a Lombardi. And that could be New England bias talking, because that was how we judged as fans in this neck of the woods for a long period of time. Was, did you win a Super Bowl or did you not? But in a league where there's only 17 games and every game matters, you can't take a month off. In baseball, the Red Sox practically took the month of May off and then traded their best player in early June, but yet here they are still in the playoff mix because they played so well in July. You can't do that in the NFL. Like the Patriots got away with it when I was in high school and stuff because they were they were they'd start 2-2, but then wrap up the season 12-4 and waltz their way into a championship game. It's really hard to do that now. You can't take a week off. But yet us fans, we react to each week. And so if your team starts 1-3, you're going to think it's the end of the world. If your team starts 0-1, you you might think it's the end of the world. It's definitely not. Maybe if you're 1-3, it is. Anyway, that is my question about the NFC is, we're a reactionary fan base, NFL fans, but specifically in the NFC, which fan base feels the most confident outside of Philadelphia? I don't know, probably the Lions, but there's question marks all over that conference. I mean, if you really take a step back and not just obsess over the jazz that's getting played throughout the media circles this time of year, if you really take a step back and look at that conference, it's like, well, only 7 teams are going to make the playoffs, and you could make a case for a bunch that go either way. And I mean, again, if you drill into some of these conferences or some of these divisions, look at the coaches in the NFC North, right? You got Ben Johnson's moving from Detroit to Chicago. Detroit's got Dan Campbell. Then you've got Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, and you've got what's it, LaFleur in Green Bay, and it's like, well, all these guys are really smart, transformational coaches. Only one of them, only one of them can actually bring their team to win a division title, and they all have quarterback question marks. I mean, literally every team outside of Philadelphia probably has major question marks in the entire conference. So how am I supposed to sit here and analyze them? I'm doing my best, but it's really hard to do that. It's like when you bring somebody shopping for the first time who doesn't like going to a mall, doesn't everyone has a friend that you gotta they're either your groomsmen or your buddy, and you're getting ready for something, or your girls who and get ready for prom or whatever. You bring them to the shop, and they don't really go shopping, and they're overwhelmed by the amount of options to pick from. That's kind of how I feel when I try and calculate which NFL teams, especially in the NFC, are going to be any good this year. Like, I might sound like I'm redundant and I'm repeating myself, but it's because it's a valid point. And I don't think enough people are talking about it because I think so many people are caught up in like the the fantasy world of football, literally and figuratively. It's like, well, not everybody can be good. Like, oh, I like them. You guys have. I listen to sports radio all the time. They talk about, oh, well, oh, you guys got a really good defense when they interview, some beat reporter from, some random NFL team. It's like, oh, you guys got a really good defense. I feel really good about my receiving core. My running back core is really good. My front seven is stout. And then suddenly you're like, well, you guys went 5-12 last year, and there's like 8 teams I would consider better than you, and only 7 of those are going to make the playoffs. So I'm like, I'm kind of lost when I listen to NFL coverage this time of year because everyone's jazzing up the team. But I'm looking around, I'm saying, well, I kind of feel like you guys might not be that good. Like, if the Rams don't have Matt Stafford, I love Jimmy G. I think a lot of things would have changed in Patriot Land if we had figured out that problem. But that's a story for another day. But like, if the Rams have to rely on Jimmy Garoppolo to win them games, they're not going to be a Super Bowl contender. They're just not. It doesn't matter how good the wide receiver room is. So I mean, I'm I'm just being honest about these things. Like I could pretend that I was excited about every single team, but like the Seattle Seahawks are banking on Sam Darnold, who has been garbage his whole career, minus last year. And I'll raise my hand. I was completely wrong about Sam Darnold last year. I said he was going to be bad. he I said he was a train wreck. I was wrong. He had a really good season. But again, like Seattle is expecting something that has only happened once to happen again. I don't know what the definition of that is. I know insanity is expecting different results out of the same thing. I don't know what the definition is of expecting a anomaly to repeat itself, which is what a lot of the NFL looks at. And look, I'll be honest, when I talk about the AFC next week, I'll pick on my Patriots too. Just to give you a little teaser, like I think us guys in Patriots land are a little bit naive if we think that solely the good draft class, Mike Vrabel, and some key free agent signings like Stephon Diggs and Milton Johnson or whatever his name is. Was that his name? Milton Williams. Thank you, Brain. If we think those things are going to suddenly catapult the team to be 11-6, I think we're smoking something. But I don't know. We'll find out. But like everybody is really excited about their team. Everyone's really bullish on their team. But if you're going to take anything away from my rambling for the last half hour, it's going to be that again, just like I said with that Rafael Devers trade, everything's not as it seems. Okay, there's more under the current. Everyone's going to jazz up their their team in August. But in October, we're going to start talking about who's going to fire the coach first or who's going to be on Arch Manning watch if there is going to be any. So, like, that conversation is going to happen in less than 8 weeks. So, I guarantee you there's a team out there that is bullish on their team that's by week 8 is going to be talking about draft position. Because I've lived it. I've lived it the last 2 or 3 seasons as a Pats fan. I'll raise my hand. I was wrong about a lot of things. Mac Jones, I was wrong about that. I was wrong about Gerard Mayo. But look, like, that's how quickly the NFL can change. It's a what have you done for me lately kind of league. And I think some teams and some fan bases are in for a rude awakening, especially in the NFC. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Home Field Advantage. Hope you enjoyed the program. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Thanks for listening on audio. We'll be back next week. We'll talk AFC. We'll also, maybe if we have time, see how the AL and NL wildcard race are looking, and maybe take a brief look at the top 25 in college football because that was released this week. But that's the plan for next week. Until then, hope you have a great rest of your week. You can follow us at Homefield Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. But until next time, my name is Will Highland, and this has been Home Field Advantage.